They say love fades, that people leave, that connections, no matter how deep, eventually drift apart. But what if I told you they don't really disappear? They orbit, they linger, they wait. They may walk away, but they always look back. They always come back when you radiate a certain kind of energy, an energy that cannot be faked, one that's born from peace, purpose, presence, one that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't crumble. If you want to understand what that energy is, and more importantly, how to become the kind of person who naturally emits it, you're in the right place. This is the Everlasting Stoic, and today we're going to dive deep into the kind of internal transformation that makes people who once overlooked you feel the weight of your absence and the undeniable pull of your growth. This isn't just about attracting others back. It's about becoming so grounded, so aligned, and so powerful within yourself that the world, not just people, starts to respond differently to you. So if you're ready to stop reacting, stop chasing, and start becoming, then stay with me until the very end. And while you're here, pause. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Like the video so it reaches others who might need this message. And leave a comment at the end sharing what part of this resonated most deeply with you. Let's begin. 1. Find peace within. There is a reason the Stoics began everything with the self. Before they sought to persuade others, they mastered their own speech. Before they attempted to lead, they learned to govern their own impulses. And before they pursued love, influence, or any external recognition, they found peace within themselves. This is the first step, and it is the hardest, because in a world that constantly demands your attention, learning to sit quietly with yourself can feel like torture. Yet it's only in that silence, in that stillness, that the roots of true power are laid. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you sat with your thoughts without distraction? No music, no scrolling, no texting, just you and your mind. It's in that space that you come face to face with what's truly going on inside you. The anxieties you've buried, the fears you've silenced, the insecurities that only reveal themselves in the quiet. Most people never go there. They flee to external noise because their internal world feels unbearable. But the man or woman who chooses to walk into that silence and who can breathe deeply there becomes immovable. This is the foundation of the energy they feel when you enter a room without saying a word. This is the strength they sense when they try to manipulate your emotions and it doesn't work. This is the strength they sense when they try to manipulate your emotions and it doesn't work. This is the peace that tells them, this person no longer needs me to feel whole. Peace within is not passivity. It is power restrained. It is not the absence of emotion. It is emotional clarity. It is the ability to feel everything fully and still, not let those feelings dictate your choices. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people go through the same breakup. One spirals, texting, pleading, checking stories, wondering what went wrong. The other sits, breathes, accepts. He reflects, he writes. He walks, he returns to the books that once shaped him. He lifts, he learns, he stays silent, not to punish, but to preserve, not to wait, but to work. Which one do you think emits power when seen again? Peace within isn't something you proclaim. It's something you become. And it becomes visible in your micro expressions, your posture, your tone. You stop over-explaining. You no longer need validation. You carry yourself as someone who's already enough. And ironically, that is what makes people come back. Not because you guilted them, not because you posted just the right cryptic quote, but because the energy you now radiate tells them, I've found something deeper than what we had, and it's within me. Peace makes you magnetic, not because of how loudly you speak it, but because of how deeply you live it. It tells the world you're not waiting for anyone to complete you. You've already come home. And here's the real irony. When you truly make peace with being alone, you stop giving off the desperate signal that repels. You begin to glow with a calm certainty that others can't quite name, but they feel it. Peace within is cultivated over time. It's built through discipline, morning rituals, healthy detachment, intentional solitude, reflection, reading, reconnecting with nature, letting go of people who bring chaos, redefining your relationship with stillness, not numbing, not escaping, being. You become someone who is no longer shaken by the silence of others. Someone who knows that the most attractive state in the universe is inner stability. You don't chase, you don't explain. You simply are, and they feel it. Even if they don't understand it, they wonder how you're doing so well. They question why you're not reacting. They check in, not because they care deeply, but because your absence now carries weight. Because your presence used to be available, and now it's been replaced by mystery. That mystery is born from peace. So here's your challenge. If you're serious about becoming this person, don't reach out, don't perform, go inward. Find what's been left unhealed. Sit in the storm of your own mind until it no longer scares you. Build a routine that supports clarity over chaos. Start every morning not with distraction, but with discipline. Not with stimulation, but with stillness. Trade dopamine for depth. Trade reaction for reflection. Trade longing for purpose. And if you've made that commitment, if you're ready to begin building this peace within yourself, then I want you to type one simple affirmation in the comments right now. I will master myself before seeking anyone else. Let those words mark the start of something powerful. Because once you've found peace within, you don't chase, you attract. To detach without bitterness. One of the most misunderstood principles in both Stoicism and relationships is detachment. To the untrained mind, detachment sounds cold, emotionless, even cruel. But to the Stoic, detachment is an act of clarity, not of callousness. It is not indifference. It is discipline in its purest form. The discipline to separate what we feel from what we choose. And here's the key. Real detachment never carries bitterness. Because bitterness is just a form of lingering attachment. It's still bound up in what they did, what they didn't do, how unfair it all felt. Bitterness says, I'm not over it. I'm still clinging to what I think I deserved. But true detachment says, I release you, and I release myself. When a relationship ends or when someone pulls away, it's natural to feel grief. You gave time, energy, intimacy. You shared your inner world with someone who now seems distant, indifferent, or even gone. But this is where the Stoic path diverges from the reactive one. The reactive path is the one most people take. They stay mentally entangled in the story of what went wrong. They replay the final conversation. They craft speeches in the shower. They keep one eye on their profile, their online status, their posts. They think detachment means cutting someone off, blocking them, pretending they don't care. But inside they're seething, waiting, watching, still tied. The Stoic path is different. It says, I accept the loss. I welcome the pain. I transmute it into strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. That doesn't mean you don't feel sadness. But you don't let sadness turn into resentment. You don't let ego dress itself up as closure. You let them go not because they deserved it, but because you deserve peace. Think about it. Every moment you spend ruminating on someone who left, every ounce of emotional energy wasted on passive-aggressive thoughts, every interaction replayed in your mind, is a moment you are still making them the center of your universe. Detachment is the art of recentering yourself, of drawing your emotional investment back inward. Not to punish, not to posture, but to purify. It doesn't mean you don't care anymore. It means you care more about your alignment, your growth, and your dignity. To detach without bitterness, you must look at the past not as a tragedy, but as a teacher. Ask, what did this show me about myself? Where was I acting from fear instead of truth? Where was I settling? Overgiving, ignoring red flags? Bitterness says, they wasted my time. Wisdom says, they revealed my standards. Bitterness seeks revenge, sometimes in the form of icy silence, subtle jabs, or proving you've moved on faster. But detachment says, I don't need to win. I just need to walk away whole. And here's the real test. You know you've detached when you can think about them and feel neutral. Not rage, not longing, just stillness, gratitude, even. For the lessons, for the closure you never got, for the mirror they held up. This doesn't happen overnight. You will feel the pull. You will want to reach out. You will crave validation. But every time you resist, every time you choose silence, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, you grow stronger. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you no longer miss them. You miss the version of you that didn't yet know how powerful you could become without them. So I want to ask you a question. What's the hardest part of detaching for you? Without becoming bitter or resentful, be honest. Reflect deeply, and if you're ready, share your thoughts below. Not just for me, but for the person reading the comments who's walking through the same fire. Let your pain become someone else's permission to heal. 3. Prioritize purpose over people. The world will tell you that love is everything, that relationships are the goal, that finding the one is the destination, that success, fulfillment, and joy all orbit around connection. But here's the uncomfortable truth. No one wants to say aloud. If you place people above your purpose, you will always suffer. Because people change. Feelings shift. Timing falters. Even the most passionate love can grow distant. But purpose endure. Now, I'm not saying you don't need love. You do. We all do. But when love becomes your highest aim, when your identity is wrapped around another person's presence, you become vulnerable to their volatility. The Stoics knew this well. They wrote, not of romance, but of duty, of virtue, of living in accordance with nature, which to them meant following the reasoned path of character, contribution, and clarity. In modern terms, that means this: your purpose must be bigger than your desire for a relationship. Because when your purpose is clear, when your days are structured around growth, creation, contribution, discipline, you stop acting from emotional desperation. You stop trying to win people back. You stop asking, why don't they love me? And start asking, how can I live more aligned today? Let me tell you a secret. Nothing is more attractive than someone living deeply in their purpose. When you're on your path, training your body, building your craft, mastering your time, leading with presence, you begin to radiate something rare. People feel it. It draws them in, not because you're trying to be impressive, but because you've become intentional. Suddenly, you don't text just because you're bored. You don't check social media to see who's watching. You don't chase closure. You don't beg. You don't seek, because you're busy becoming. This energy, the energy of someone whose life is full, is magnetic. It flips the dynamic. People feel your absence, not just as emotional distance, but as a lifestyle they're no longer part of. And here's the paradox. When you stop making someone your purpose, they often become curious again. They wonder where your attention went, why your presence feels lighter, why your silence holds weight. But here's the Stoic twist. By then, you won't need them to return. You'll be at peace either way. Because once you've aligned with your purpose, love becomes a complement, not a crutch. A choice, not a compulsion. You no longer need someone to make your life meaningful, because your life already is. I'll give you a tangible practice. Take a day, just one, and schedule it around your higher self. Wake up early, move your body, read something challenging. Do one thing for your mission. Stay off your phone, journal, breathe deeply, reflect. Notice how you feel at the end of that day. Then imagine living like that for a month, a year, a lifetime. The right people will align with that energy. The wrong ones will fall away. And both outcomes are victories. If you're still waiting for someone to notice you, to regret leaving, to come back, ask yourself, have I neglected my purpose in the process? And if you're ready to return to it, truly return, then say it boldly in the comments. I choose purpose over people. Not because people don't matter, but because your path must be sacred. And only those who respect it deserve to walk beside you. 4. Use absence to build value. There's a reason why silence speaks louder than words, and why absence can carry more power than presence ever did. In the realm of relationships, we often believe that closeness is the key to value. That by constantly showing up, by reminding them we care, by being available at every moment, we prove our worth. But here's a truth many resist. Value is not reinforced through presence. It's often revealed through absence. Absence tests perception. It confronts people with the weight of what they took for granted. It interrupts the default setting. It forces a question into the quiet. Where did they go? And more importantly, why don't I feel the same without them here? You see, familiarity here can breed comfort, but unchecked, it breeds blindness. When you're always there, texting first, responding instantly, always showing your availability, your value blends into the background. You become part of the scenery, predictable, safe, expected. And people don't value what they expect. They value what they imagine, what they suddenly miss, what they have to wonder about. Absence, when wielded with intention, shifts the entire dynamic. But let's be clear, this isn't a game. This isn't about manipulation. If you disappear to punish or provoke, it backfires. That's ego. That's resentment disguised as strategy. The Stoic approach to absence is rooted in purposeful withdrawal. You don't go silent to elicit guilt. You go silent to reclaim alignment. You don't pull away to hurt them. You pull away to heal yourself. You become the person who doesn't need to prove anything. And in that absence, something magical happens. They begin to remember not just the facts of who you were, but the feeling of being around you, the ease of your presence, the way you listened, the security in your tone, the gravity of your energy. Why? Because distance magnifies detail. Because people don't notice the echo until the sound is gone. Because only in your silence do they hear their own thoughts without the comfort of your reassurance. But here's the part most people never understand. The true value of absence doesn't lie in their reaction. It lies in what happens to you during that time away. You begin to recenter, rebuild, refocus. You redirect your emotional bandwidth toward growth. You sharpen your mind, your body, your direction. You discover parts of yourself that had been buried beneath the noise of emotional entanglement. When you step back, you gain perspective. You see what you tolerated, what you accepted out of fear, what you gave away for free. And with that clarity, your value doesn't just return, it multiplies. Now imagine the person who left or drifted encountering that version of you again. Not desperate, not waiting, not signaling need, but calm, focused, radiant. Someone whose life didn't collapse but evolved. That kind of absence becomes unforgettable. Because it wasn't a pause. It was a transformation. And that's the real key here. You don't just go missing, you go internal. You stop speaking to them and start speaking to your higher self. You build, you refine, you become. And when or if they return, they realize they're no longer walking into the same house they left. The doors still exist, but the interior has changed. The atmosphere is elevated. The standards are higher. The silence has shaped you into someone who no longer needs what they once withheld. Now they're no longer the center of your attention. They're standing at the edge of your orbit, hoping to be let back in. And that shift, that moment of reversal, it's not achieved by begging, or explaining, or reminding. It's achieved by vanishing into your growth, while the echo of who you were reminds them what they lost. If you're ready to stop proving your value by staying and start building your value by stepping away, then I want you to say it clearly in the comments. My absence will reflect my evolution. Say it not as a tactic, but as a declaration. Because absence is not a void. It's the womb of reinvention. And when you return, it won't be as the same person. 5. Grow beyond their expectations. You were never meant to stay the version of yourself they last saw. If someone from your past walked into your life today and felt like they could predict your moves, your mindset, your values, then you've stayed too still. You've settled into the mold they left you in. You've remained frozen in a chapter they stopped reading. But that's not what Stoic transformation looks like. Not even close. Growth, real growth, is a disruption, a rupture. A shedding of old skin so complete that those who once claimed to know you must now relearn you, or walk away confused, no longer qualified to access the person you've become. When people part ways romantically, emotionally, even temporarily, they leave with a snapshot. A final mental picture of who you were, your insecurities, your habits, your softness, your boundaries, your blind spots. They remember your lowest point, your weakest argument, your most vulnerable confession, and then they freeze that image in their mind. Most people spend the months that follow trying to disprove that image, to prove they've changed. They post more, they flex more, they overcompensate, but the Stoic doesn't chase validation. He doesn't rush to update anyone's perception. He quietly grows beyond it. And in doing so, he renders their entire mental snapshot obsolete. Imagine this. Someone who once dismissed you, thought they knew your patterns, thought they could always read you, sees you again 6 months later. But this time, your energy is different. You're no longer reactive. You don't explain yourself. Your movements are measured. Your tone is deep. Your body is stronger. Your presence feels grounded. You've outpaced their expectations. They speak to the old you, and the new you no longer replies. Why is this so powerful? Because it flips the dynamic. It awakens curiosity. It ignites reflection. They wonder, did I underestimate them? Did I leave too early? Have they become someone I no longer have access to? This isn't revenge. This isn't ego. This is natural consequence. The result of inner work performed in solitude, of consistent discipline in the dark when no one was clapping, of nights spent choosing growth over comfort. Growth beyond expectations doesn't mean replacing people. It means replacing patterns. You no longer need to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. You show up to life not for an audience, but for alignment. You speak less, but your silence now carries weight. You don't explain what's changed. You embody it, and here's where it becomes undeniable. They try to reconnect, not with a grand apology, not with deep insight. Usually it starts small. A check-in. A how have you been? A message that says, I remember you, but I no longer recognize who you've become. And in that moment, the decision isn't theirs anymore. It's yours, because now, you're no longer seeking reunion. You're assessing compatibility with the evolved version of yourself. You're asking, does this connection serve my growth? Or pull me back into the version of me I worked so hard to leave behind? This is the test of your transformation. It's not about proving you're better. It's about protecting who you've become. You don't need to show them anything. You are the proof. And if you're walking this path, if you've committed to becoming unrecognizable to the version of them that once dismissed you, then share it. Comment this now. I will grow beyond what they expected and become what I expect of myself. Let it be your contract with the future. Because becoming unforgettable starts with becoming unstoppable. And they always come back, but by then you'll be far ahead. 6. Reinforce your standards. At some point in your journey, you'll come to a crossroad. You've done the work. You've grown in silence. You've detached, refocused, and rediscovered your center. The noise has faded. The longing has softened. The past has lost its grip. And then, just when you least expect it, they return. A message, a like, a subtle signal. Sometimes it's a full apology. Other times it's an ambiguous breadcrumb, just enough to stir memory, to test the waters, to see if the door is still cracked open. And in that moment, you must ask yourself a question more powerful than any feeling. Have I raised my standards or just passed time? Because if you're not careful, you'll mistake growth for distraction. You'll think distance has healed you, when in truth, it only hid your desire beneath a new routine. And the moment they come back, that desire surges, and your standards dissolve. But here's the truth no one tells you. Growth is not just about moving forward. It's about protecting what you've built. It's about reinforcement. It's about standing at the gate of your new self and saying, not everyone gets access anymore, especially not for free. The Stoics were obsessed with virtue, but what they rarely spoke about directly, though it's present in every line of their thinking, is standards. The quiet decisions we make each day about what we will and won't allow. The internal guardrails that separate the wise from the reactive, the grounded from the impulsive. And here's what you need to understand if you're serious about transformation. If your standards don't evolve with your growth will be temporary. You'll slip back. You'll repeat the cycle. You'll welcome in what you once wept over. This is how people end up in a loop. Not because they haven't changed, but because they didn't guard their change. Because they didn't turn insight into structure. Let's get specific. If someone walked away when you needed consistency, and now they return with charm but no clarity, what is your standard? If they once disrespected your boundaries, but now flirt with ambiguity, are you enforcing a new boundary or letting the chemistry override your clarity? If they're drawn to your new energy but haven't done any work of their own, are you evaluating alignment or falling for nostalgia? Your standards are the scaffolding of your self-respect. They are not arbitrary rules. They are not mechanisms of control. They are proof that you've internalized the lessons of the past, and they must be tested repeatedly, because the universe or God or fate, whatever you believe, doesn't check for declarations. It checks for consistency. It sends you familiar temptations dressed in new packaging. It whispers, "Have you really changed?" and waits. The test is never, "Do you still love them?" The test is, "Do you still love yourself enough?" Do you love yourself enough to say no to crumbs when you're finally capable of feasting alone? Do you love yourself enough to ask, "Are they drawn to me now because I've changed or because I haven't?" You must define your standards, and then you must reinforce them in silence, in solitude, in connection. Because here's the paradox. The more powerful your presence becomes, the more people will be drawn to you. But not all of them are meant to come along. Some are merely responding to the gravitational pull of your evolution. They feel what they missed. They see the glow of your transformation. But they haven't changed. They haven't healed. They haven't honored your journey. And if you let them in without standards, they will undo the very foundation you spent months or years building. This is the cost of growth. No one warns you about the weight of discernment, the responsibility of protection, the refusal to let comfort or chemistry seduce you into regress. Reinforcing your standards means you don't engage without clarity. You don't respond to ambiguity with availability. You don't trade peace for potential. You don't let history override honesty. It means you remember what it felt like to doubt your worth, to overextend, to compromise out of fear, and you vow never to return there again. Not because you're hard-hearted, but because your heart is finally honored. And let's talk about fear, because this is where most people fold. They fear that if they say no now, no one better will come along. They fear that if they close the door, they'll regret it later. They fear that the moment has returned, and if they don't seize it, they'll lose something irreplaceable. But the Stoic teaches us to abandon what we cannot control. And that includes other people's decisions, timing, regret, or awakening. What you can control is your standard, your response, your resolve. You're not here to repeat lessons. You're here to live the wisdom they gave you. And that wisdom demands boundaries. So let them return. Let them orbit. Let them speak. But don't let them in until your standard is met. And if they can't rise to it, bless them, release them, and walk away with your peace intact. Because nothing is more attractive than someone who respects themselves so deeply that even their silence holds structure. If you're walking this line, if you've grown, and you feel the pull to revert, but you know deep down that your new life requires new standards, then I want you to write it below. I don't bend for the past. I rise for my future. Let that be your signal to the world, to yourself, to the universe. Because they always come back when you radiate this energy. But only the ones who can match it deserve to stay. 7. Let calm confidence speak for you. There comes a point in your evolution where words no longer serve as your sharpest tool, where you realize you don't need to argue. You don't need to justify. You don't even need to explain your growth. Because the most powerful thing in the room is no longer your opinion. It's your energy. And that energy speaks volumes when it comes wrapped in calm confidence. You see, people expect a reaction. They expect you to flinch, to fumble, to prove, to impress. They anticipate a version of you, still driven by insecurity, still eager for validation, still seeking external confirmation that you are enough. That's what most people deliver. But not the Stoic. The Stoic walks into a room or a conversation or a moment of tension with stillness, with clarity, with no need to win. Because calm confidence isn't a performance, it's the byproduct of inner alignment. You're not calm because you've silenced emotion. You're calm because you've made peace with it. You've befriended the chaos. You've walked into the fire of your own triggers and stayed long enough to understand them. And in doing so, you've stepped into something few people ever find: self-command. Let me be clear. Confidence without calm is ego, but calm without confidence is passivity. What you're cultivating is the marriage of both. A grounded certainty that doesn't need to boast, that doesn't chase applause, that doesn't seek permission. Think about the most compelling people you've encountered. Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the ones who made you feel something without trying. They didn't speak in excess. They didn't over-gesture. They didn't fill silence with noise. But when they did speak, you listened, because their presence demanded it. That is calm confidence. It's the man who doesn't have to tell you he's a leader. You feel it. The woman who doesn't have to ask for respect. You offer it. Not because of fear, but because of how anchored they are in who they are. You must become that, especially when they return. Because when someone comes back, when they reach out, test the waters, or try to reopen the door, they're looking for cues. They're watching closely. They want to know if you're the same person who once bent your boundaries to keep them. If you're still waiting. If you're still hurting. Let them look. Let them watch. Let your calm reveal the answer. You don't need to rush the conversation. You don't need to post something subtle. You don't need to match their energy. You lead with yours. And that energy says, I am whole. I am sovereign. I am no longer waiting for you to name my value. Calm confidence allows silence to speak in places where words once fumbled. It lets you say more with your tone, your posture, your choices than any speech ever could. And here's the deeper power. When you radiate calm confidence, people begin to regulate themselves in your presence. They rise. They hesitate before speaking. They listen more. Because you've become a mirror that reflects their own lack of grounding. That's why they come back. It's not because of what you said. It's because of what your stillness made them feel. Now listen closely, because this part matters. If your confidence is rooted in their return, it's still fragile. If your calm only exists when you're being acknowledged, it's conditional. But when both remain intact, regardless of their actions, you've entered a realm few ever reach. So cultivate that. Walk slower. Speak less. Choose your words like a craftsman, not a performer. Let silence be a tool, not avoid. Let people lean in, not because you're whispering, but because your restraint is louder than noise. And if you've committed to being this kind of presence, not just for them but for your own life, then I want you to affirm it in the comments. I speak without noise. I lead with calm. Because in the end, your silence will be remembered far more than their excuses. Conclusion. And so we arrive at the close of this journey. If you've made it this far, understand this: most people never do, not just in videos, but in life. They start strong, but they don't stay. They dabble but don't transform. They read, but they don't apply. You've stayed. That matters. Because the energy we've explored today, the one that makes them come back, that shifts dynamics, that reverses polarity, it isn't a trick. It isn't about control. It's about reclaiming yourself. You stop chasing when you find peace within. You stop seeking when you learn to detach without bitterness. You stop proving when your purpose becomes your compass. You stop performing when your absence carries value. You stop hoping when you've grown beyond their imagination. You stop bending when your standards become law. And you stop talking when your calm confidence becomes your voice. They always come back when you radiate this energy. But by then, you'll understand something they never did. You were never missing. You were just misdirected. And now, you're home. Before you go, if this spoke to you, if it lit something inside you, or put words to a feeling you couldn't explain, hit that subscribe button. Not just to support this channel, but to support yourself. You're here because part of you is ready. Ready to rise, to lead, to live differently. Tap the like button to help others discover this message. And drop a comment. Share what resonated most, or write your own Stoic declaration for where you are right now. Because the best way to lead is to live it out loud. This is the Everlasting Stoic, and your journey is only beginning. I'll see you in the next one. Stay grounded. Stay powerful. And remember, you don't chase. You attract. You don't react. You rise. Until next time.